Have you ever held a coin so ordinary, so unremarkable that you barely noticed it before letting it slip through your fingers, only to later discover that it might have been worth nearly $1 million? Picture this, a simple copper coin from 1967, the Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, no mint mark, dull from decades of circulation, maybe resting unnoticed in a jar on a kitchen counter. Yet today, collectors whisper of one such coin that stunned the numismatic world. Valued at an astonishing $888,000, it's not a myth. It's a reminder that in the world of rare coins, value often hides behind the illusion of the ordinary. But how could a 1-cent coin, minted in the millions, rise to such breathtaking worth? To answer that, we must step back in time, to a turbulent chapter in American history when the U.S. Mint was under pressure, the economy was shifting, and trust in coinage itself was being tested. The year was 1967. The Vietnam War raged on. Inflation stirred anxiety. Silver was vanishing from circulation after the 1965 Coinage Act had stripped precious metal from U.S. dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Americans began hoarding older coins, fearing the new clad issues would never hold the same value. The U.S. Mint faced chaos. Collectors were stockpiling coins faster than they could be made. The government accused hobbyists of creating shortages. In response, an unprecedented decision was made. No mint marks would appear on coins for 1965. 1966 or 1967? That meant the humble 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coin, struck at multiple mints across the nation, bore no identifying letter at all. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all contributed, but their coins looked identical. To the average person, this seemed trivial. But to collectors, it was a quiet tragedy, and years later, a hidden opportunity. Among the tens of millions of copper cents struck in 1967, a few left the mint floor with mysterious anomalies, off-center strikes, doubled images, misaligned dies, or minute metallic variations from experimental batches. These tiny differences, invisible to most, are what transform a coin from common change into a legendary artifact. Imagine a 1967 Lincoln cent whose surface shimmered slightly differently, not the dull red-brown typical of the period, but a deeper hue with unusually crisp lettering and a ghostly doubling of Lincoln's profile under certain light. To an untrained eye, it's nothing. But to an expert with a magnifier and decades of experience, it's a siren call. One such coin surfaced quietly at a Midwest estate sale in the early 2000s. The seller believed it was worth a few dollars at most. A sharp-eyed collector, however, noticed something extraordinary. A faint doubling on the date and the phrase, "In God We Trust." The fields were unusually reflective, a sign that it might have been struck from a proof die. After careful authentication and grading, it was revealed to be one of the finest known 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln cents, with unique die characteristics believed to originate from early test runs at the Philadelphia Mint. When it finally sold, the hammer price stunned the market. $888,000 a single cent. Nearly $900,000. So what made it so special? Not gold, not silver. Not rarity in metal, but rarity in circumstance. That's what separates investors from true numismatists, the ability to see value in story, in history, in anomaly. The 1967 no-mint mark cent represents a moment when American coinage itself was in flux. The government sought uniformity and control, yet the minting process, human, mechanical, imperfect, gave birth to unintentional masterpieces. Each flaw, each subtle variance became a fingerprint of that era's uncertainty. Collectors often say, coins are history you can hold, but they're also psychology you can read. Every major boom in the coin market has come from a wave of rediscovery, when everyday Americans suddenly realized that something in their pocket might be priceless. It happened in the 1970s with the double-die Lincoln cents, in the 1990s with the rare off-metal state quarters, and again today as the digital world drives a hunger for tangible legacy. In uncertain times, coins remind us that real value endures. But let's pause for a moment. What if yes, you have handled a 1967 cent like this before? Think back. Maybe it was the coin you dropped into a vending machine, or one your grandfather tucked into a drawer for good luck. What if that same coin, overlooked for half a century, was one of the few that could rewrite your financial story? That question is what drives the fire of every collector, every investor, every dreamer in this space. The market for vintage American cents has quietly evolved in recent years. While high-grade 1909 VDB proofs and 1955 doubled dies still command attention, the mid-century issues, like the 1967 Lincoln, have seen a surge in demand. Why? Because modern collectors are chasing new frontiers. The obvious rarities have already been claimed. The smart money is now flowing into transitional years, minting anomalies, and coins tied to key policy shifts, exactly like 1967. It's a psychological shift. As wealthier investors seek diversification beyond stocks and real estate, coins offer something digital assets cannot: permanence. You can touch it, hold it, pass it on. And in a world where trust in currency fluctuates, the tangible feels like truth. Every great collector eventually learns that the search isn't about the coin. It's about the story. The story of a nation recovering from war, of a mint grappling with modernization, of an engraver's careful hand, creating thousands of near-perfect impressions until one, just one, goes beautifully wrong, and then there's you. Sitting with a magnifying glass, scanning through a pile of copper coins, heart quickening as you spot something different, a slightly thicker rim, a doubling of Lincoln's eye, a shimmer that feels almost alive. That's the moment every collector lives for. The moment when curiosity transforms into discovery. It's easy to dismiss this as luck. But seasoned numismatists know better. They know that the most valuable finds are rarely accidents. They're the result of discipline, education, and instinct. Learning to recognize die varieties, studying minting records, understanding the subtle changes in font and metal composition from year to year. This is how ordinary people turn a hobby into legacy, and that's what makes the story of the 1967 Lincoln cent so profound. Because it's not just a coin that gained value. It's a symbol of patience rewarded, a reminder that wealth isn't always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's hiding in a forgotten roll of change from your grandfather's desk drawer. But here's something few people realize. Not all 1967 no-mint mark cents are created equal. Most were struck from reused dies, slightly worn, producing softer details. But a select few, especially those from the early production runs, display proof-like qualities: mirror fields, razor-sharp lettering, a delicate frost on Lincoln's portrait. If you find one with those features, and it's been preserved without corrosion or scratches, you may be holding something truly exceptional. Even lesser specimens can fetch hundreds or thousands at auction, depending on grade and luster, and yet the true magic lies not in the sale price, but in the realization that history is still alive, waiting to be rediscovered in the most unexpected places. Some collectors compare the hunt to archaeology, others to detective work. But maybe it's more like time travel. Each coin carries you back to the minting floor, the clang of metal, the smell of oil, the rhythmic hum of presses striking thousands of blanks per minute. Somewhere among them, a tiny variation occurs, unnoticed by any worker, destined to outlive them all. Decades later, you, perhaps sitting under a soft lamp at midnight, uncover it. That connection across time is what makes numismatics unlike any other pursuit. Because when you find a coin like the 1967 Lincoln cent worth $888,000, you're not just holding copper. You're holding a secret handshake with history. So what can we learn from this story? First, never underestimate the power of observation. Many of history's greatest coin discoveries were made not by experts, but by everyday people who simply looked closer. Second, understand that the true value of a coin lies at the intersection of rarity, condition, and narrative. The 1967 cent isn't rare in quantity, it's rare in context. And third, remember that markets move in cycles. When fear rises in the economy, tangible assets like rare coins tend to gain renewed attention. As inflation bites and digital bubbles wobble, investors once again turn to the comfort of something real, heavy and beautiful in the palm of their hand. Perhaps, years from now, another coin from that forgotten 1967 batch will emerge, tucked inside an old coffee can, or found in the back of a safety deposit box. Maybe it'll be yours, maybe not. But the thrill of possibility is what keeps this world alive. Every coin collector deep down is an optimist. They believe that hidden among the billions of minted pieces are tiny miracles waiting to be recognized. And sometimes, those miracles are worth $888,000. So the next time you sift through a handful of old change, pause before you dismiss the plain and familiar. That dull copper cent might just be the key to a forgotten fortune, a bridge between past and present, between craftsmanship and chance. Because in the mysterious realm of American coinage, value isn't declared, it's discovered, and who knows? The next great treasure of numismatic history might already be resting in the palm of your hand. Soft pause. Keep your eyes open. Your legacy could be hiding in plain sight. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet history has shown that ordinary coins, the kind we overlook, the kind we've used to buy a cup of coffee, sometimes hold secrets that can rewrite a collector's destiny. The year is 1968. America is in the middle of transformation, from the roar of the space race to the turmoil of social change. And somewhere in that moment of national upheaval, inside the vast halls of the U.S. Mint, a quiet mistake may have been born. A mistake so subtle it escaped detection. A coin without a mint mark. A 1968 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin that should have proudly displayed an S for San Francisco or a D for Denver. But didn't. To most, it looked like any other coin. But to numismatists, that missing mint mark whispered of mystery and value. For decades, collectors and treasure hunters have searched for this elusive variant, one that seems to exist in the space between myth and reality. Some say it was a transitional error, the product of an overlooked die, accidentally struck at the wrong facility. Others believe it was intentional, a quiet test, a mint experiment that somehow escaped into circulation. Whatever the origin, this anomaly, this 1968 Lincoln 1-cent coin without a mint mark, would later stun the market with valuations reaching as high as $882,000. Now pause for a moment and think about that. A coin with a face value of 1 cent, transformed into a fortune. That's not just wealth. That's legacy. But what makes such a simple copper coin command such unimaginable value? The answer lies not just in metal or rarity, but in story, the story of the American Mint, the psychology of collectors, and the eternal allure of what we can't quite have. You see, collectors aren't just buyers of metal. They are curators of time. Every coin they hold tells a story of decisions, craftsmanship, and error. And errors, as strange as it sounds, are what drive perfectionists wild. When something isn't supposed to exist, but does, it becomes an obsession. In 1968, the U.S. Mint had resumed placing mint marks after a brief pause in the mid-1960s, when they were temporarily removed to discourage coin hoarding. Philadelphia-made coins traditionally carried no mint mark. That was standard. But by 1968, certain series, including proof coins, were exclusively struck at San Francisco. So a 1968 coin missing its S mark from the San Francisco Mint shouldn't exist at all. And yet, whispers began to circulate among collectors. A few examples without the mark had surfaced, in proof-like condition with all the hallmarks of San Francisco craftsmanship. Was it an experimental run? A mint worker's oversight? Or perhaps a rogue die shipped to the wrong facility? Each theory added to the myth and myths are gold in the numismatic world. To understand why these coins command such extraordinary prices, you need to understand the collector's mind. For some, it's about the hunt, the adrenaline of discovery, the heart-pounding realization that something extraordinary has been hiding in plain sight. For others, it's the thrill of owning a piece of American history that slipped through the cracks of bureaucracy and precision. And for the investor, it's about leverage, Rare coins like the 1968 no mint mark Lincoln, 1-cent coin represent the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and emotional attachment. But here's where the story deepens. In 1968, the mint used different alloys than those circulating today. The rich reddish-brown tone of early copper Lincoln cents carries a warmth, a weight, a reminder of an era before zinc cores and plated shells. Over time, these coins have aged, developed patina, and gained a texture that feels more like art than currency. And then there's the irony. The very mark meant to show where a coin was made became the detail whose absence made it priceless. How often in life does nothing, the absence of a single letter, create everything? That's the kind of poetic twist that draws both investors and dreamers. Of course, not every 1968 cent without a visible mint mark is valuable. Many are simply worn Philadelphia issues. The genuine error coins, the ones that ignite auctions and set hearts racing, exhibit proof-like surfaces, mirror finishes, and sharp strikes that hint at San Francisco origin. These are the coins that have been authenticated, graded, and sealed in the transparent sanctuaries of major grading services. At auction, these coins become theater. The bidding starts slow, cautious. Then, as the rarity reveals itself, prices climb and hearts race. Somewhere in that crowd, a seasoned collector smiles, not because of what the coin is worth today, but because of what it represents, a bridge between history and mystery, chance and craftsmanship, and for those watching from home, for those holding jars of old coins passed down from parents or grandparents, the story sparks something deeper. What if one of mine is the one? It's this emotional ignition that sustains the numismatic world. The sense that hidden among the millions of ordinary coins lies a few extraordinary ones, tiny copper time capsules that hold not just value, but destiny. Even the market psychology around coins like the 1968 no mint mark Lincoln cent is fascinating. When stories like this surface, tales of a coin selling for hundreds of thousands, market interest surges. Search engines fill with queries, coin dealers field calls, and everyday Americans dust off shoeboxes from their attics. This wave of curiosity isn't just about profit, it's about connection. Because each coin tells us something about who we were, about craftsmanship, about errors that became icons, about how even the smallest details matter. And in a world increasingly digital, where money exists as code and pixels, holding a tangible piece of American history becomes a quiet act of rebellion. Think about that. The feel of aged copper, smooth yet textured, carrying the face of Lincoln, a symbol of resilience and moral courage, and below it, the date, 1968, a year of turmoil and transformation. To own such a coin is to own a contradiction, a reminder that even in chaos, beauty can emerge by accident. But here's a question few ask. What happens when the myth becomes reality? If a verified 1968 no mint mark proof Lincoln cent can sell for close to $1 million, what happens to its legend? Does the story end? Or does it grow, pulling in new dreamers, new collectors, new believers? The truth is, the story never ends. Because for every confirmed discovery, there are always whispers of others. Unfound, ungraded, undiscovered coins lying quietly in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections. And maybe, just maybe, one of those belongs to you. That's the beauty of numismatics. It rewards patience, curiosity, and the courage to look closer. The next great discovery doesn't happen under a microscope. It happens under the light of curiosity. So, the next time you handle an old Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1968, take a moment. Look carefully at the date. Then below it, check for that tiny letter, S or D. If it's missing, and the coin gleams with that unmistakable mirror finish of a proof, you may be holding history in your hand, but tread carefully. For every genuine treasure, there are countless counterfeits, coins altered, polished, or even artificially aged to deceive. The true 1968 no mint mark proofs have subtle markers that only expert eyes can verify. The sharpness of the rim, the depth of Lincoln's portrait, the mirrored fields. That's why authentication from a respected grading service is essential. Still, even without finding that $1,000,000 coin, the act of searching transforms you. You begin to see value in the details, the engraving, the texture, the subtle imperfections that make each coin unique. And perhaps that's the real reward, awakening a collector's mind, the ability to see hidden worth in the ordinary. After all, collecting isn't about greed, it's about legacy. Coins pass through generations, carrying the fingerprints of time. They connect grandparents to grandchildren, immigrants to ancestors, ordinary citizens to the nation's great story. And in that lineage, even the smallest coin can hold immeasurable meaning. So yes, the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin may be worth $882,000 in the auction house. But its true worth may be far greater. It's the embodiment of the American dream. The idea that something overlooked, something humble, can one day become extraordinary. As you close this story and glance at the coins in your own possession, remember this. History doesn't just live in museums or glass cases. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket. Sometimes it hides in your change jar. Sometimes it stares back at you from a coin so common, you almost didn't look twice. And when you finally do, when you hold that coin to the light and wonder if this could be the one, you join a lineage of seekers stretching back generations, collectors, dreamers, investors, historians, all united by one truth. The greatest treasures are often the smallest things we almost overlook. So keep looking, keep searching. Because in the world of coins, every discovery begins with curiosity and sometimes ends with a miracle. And who knows? The next miracle might already be sitting in your palm, disguised as a simple, ordinary Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1968. Missing just one tiny mark, but carrying $1 million story. It's a coin that has haunted treasure hunters for decades. A humble Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, struck in 1969 at the Denver Mint. But beneath its unassuming surface, whispers of misprints, minting anomalies, and market speculation have turned it into one of the most talked-about numismatic enigmas of the 20th century. What if that same reddish-brown coin resting in an old coffee can, or tucked inside your grandfather's cigar box, was worth not 1 cent? But over $875,000? That's not folklore. That's the astonishing reality of a few rare 1969 Lincoln 1-cent coins that have shaken the coin-collecting world to its core. In 1969, America was in a state of reinvention. The moon landing loomed on the horizon. The nation was wrestling with war and wonder. Amid that turbulence, the Denver Mint continued its steady hum. Billions of Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coins flowing from its presses, stamped with the familiar D mint mark, a quiet symbol of consistency in a world changing overnight. But here's where the story bends, and where fortune favors the observant. Somewhere along the production line, a handful of coins emerged not quite as they should have. To the untrained eye, they looked ordinary. Lincoln's stoic profile, the familiar "In God We Trust" arching across his head, and the bold date 1969 anchoring the design. Yet to a numismatist, to someone who studies the tiny details that most overlook, something felt off. Under magnification, the numbers seemed to double. The letters vibrated as if echoing themselves. Liberty appeared almost shadowed, as though a ghostly twin hovered just beneath the surface. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a doubled die, one of the most dramatic and captivating minting errors ever discovered. The tale begins with a mistake. In coin production, dies, the engraved metal stamps that impress a design onto blank planchets, are supposed to be created with precision. But in 1969, a small batch of dies at the Philadelphia Mint, where master dies were prepared before distribution, were accidentally struck twice at a slight offset. That second strike created the doubled image. Those flawed dies were sent to Denver. And when they began minting coins, each piece carried the DNA of that error, a double-struck design born from a mechanical accident, destined to become one of America's rarest treasures. But in 1969, no one knew. For years, the coins circulated unnoticed. They passed through gas stations, lunch counters, and pockets. Some were dropped into jars, some spent at diners, and others forgotten in drawers. Ordinary coins in an extraordinary disguise. Then came 1970, and a spark of controversy that nearly destroyed the legend before it began. When the first doubled die 1969, Lincoln 1-cent coin surfaced, even the United States Treasury suspected something was wrong. Not with the coin, but with the claim. Officials initially believed these were counterfeits. Secret Service agents reportedly seized specimens from collectors, convinced they were forged to exploit hobbyists. But the truth soon unfolded under careful examination. The coins were authentic. Genuine minting errors. Real pieces of U.S. monetary history. The government released them back to the public. And suddenly, almost overnight, the chase began. Collectors who had spent years studying dimes and nickels turned their magnifying glasses toward pennies. Everyone wanted one of the few surviving examples of the 1969 doubled die obverse. And then, just as the market settled, another layer of intrigue appeared. Coins with the Denver D mint mark began surfacing. Now, here's where the story deepens. While the most famous doubled die 1969, Lincoln 1-cent coin does not bear the Denver mint mark, rumors have long persisted that a handful of Denver-marked coins share a related, though different, anomaly. Whether by slight hub doubling, planchet irregularities, or later die deterioration, these coins evoke the same collector fascination. And fascination, in numismatics, is often the spark that ignites value. Because in collecting, rarity is not only about numbers, it's about narrative. A coin's story, its mystery, and the sense that one could still be out there, unclaimed, undiscovered, fuels a market where emotion and history meet. Even whispers of a Denver variation, connected in spirit to the 1969 double die, have driven collectors into a frenzy of searching, inspecting, and speculating. Online forums light up. Auctions buzz with anticipation. Coin dealers receive envelopes with trembling hands, each one containing the hopes of someone who believes they found a piece of the American dream. And sometimes, they're right. In the past few years, certified examples of the 1969 doubled die Lincoln 1-cent coin have commanded staggering prices. One sold for $126,500, another exceeded $500,000, and some dealers estimate that an exceptional, high-grade specimen could fetch $875,000 or more at auction, especially if a Denver-marked variation with distinct characteristics were authenticated. Think about that, a 1-cent coin, worth more than a house, more than a lifetime of work for some. How many of these tiny copper discs have slipped unnoticed through generations, lost in circulation, or tucked into coin rolls? How many remain in coffee tins forgotten? The thought alone is enough to make any collector pause, reach for a magnifying glass, and inspect every date from that era with reverence. But beyond the monetary allure, there's something deeper at play. Every collector knows the sensation, the quiet thrill of discovery. The pulse of possibility when you tilt a coin toward the light and see something different. It's not just about wealth. It's about legacy, because each rare coin tells a story of America itself, our ingenuity, our errors, our endurance. The Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, first minted in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth, carries within it the values of honesty, perseverance, and unity that Lincoln himself embodied. And in 1969, when the nation faced division and doubt, even this tiny coin bore witness, and through a minting accident, became a lasting symbol of imperfection turned into greatness. Let's pause for a moment. When was the last time you really looked at a coin? Not just for its value, but for its voice. The invisible mark of the engraver's hand, the faint texture of history pressed into metal. For collectors, coins are not just artifacts. They're conversations across time, and the 1969 Denver minted Lincoln 1-cent, with its whispers of doubling and its aura of legend, is one of those rare coins that invites us to listen closer. In the modern market, Demand for these coins continues to rise. As precious metals fluctuate and global currencies wobble, tangible historical assets have become the new gold standard for collectors seeking stability. High-grade copper coins, especially those tied to notable minting anomalies, are seeing renewed interest among both investors and historians. But here's the paradox. While interest grows, supply shrinks. Each passing year sees fewer of these coins in existence. Some are lost, corroded, or trapped in private collections, unlikely to reappear for decades. That scarcity only amplifies the magnetism. Because deep down, collectors are driven not just by the need to own something rare, but by the need to discover it themselves. It's the thrill of the hunt. The idea that somewhere, maybe in your own home, a single copper coin could change everything. Picture it. You're sorting through a jar of old change, coins that haven't seen daylight in years. The coins clink softly, a metallic symphony of history. One catches your eye. The color is right, the date reads 1969, and the D beneath it gleams faintly. You hold it closer to the light. Are those doubled letters? Your pulse quickens. In that moment, you're no longer just a collector. You're part of a lineage stretching back through every treasure hunter, every numismatist, every person who ever looked at a coin and thought, what if this one is different? That's the enduring power of stories like the 1969 Denver Lincoln 1-cent coin. It blurs the line between ordinary and extraordinary. It reminds us that wealth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through history, hiding in plain sight. And whether you're a seasoned investor, managing a vault of graded rarities, or a casual enthusiast with a box of old coins from your parents' attic, this story speaks directly to you. Because it's not just about the dollar value. It's about connection, to craftsmanship, to legacy, and to the mystery of chance. One small die error in 1969 rippled through time, creating a bridge between generations of collectors. A coin that once bought a stick of gum can now buy a mansion. And that transformation, from the mundane to the magnificent, mirrors something profoundly human. Our constant search for meaning, for beauty, for hidden worth. So, the next time you handle an Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Denver Mint, don't dismiss it. Study it. Feel the texture. Let curiosity lead your fingers. Because somewhere, perhaps in your pocket or resting quietly in a family drawer, could be the next great discovery. A coin that carries both the weight of history and the promise of fortune. And if you find it, if that small copper piece reveals itself under the magnifying lens, with those doubled letters whispering their secret, you'll have joined an elite circle of those who looked closer and found greatness where others saw nothing at all. In a world of digital money and fleeting value, the 1969 D. Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin stands as a reminder that real treasure is timeless. It's hidden not in speculation, but in attention, not in luck, but in legacy. Because sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and $1 million is just a matter of seeing what others missed.